This is a really good sign. I am 3 seconds past the 3 o'clock mark, so that's a good sign. It's a good tiding for the season to come. And as you might have seen by the thumbnail, don't worry about me. I'm going to be neurotic. This is one thing I discovered, and thanks to BetUS for sponsoring this video, by the way. This is one thing I discovered once I left football. It is miserably painful emotionally being a fan compared to being an actual player, because as a player you have some control over you and your team's fate, whereas a fan you just got to sit around and wait. And I've seen the comments. I know a lot of you guys are just you're bursting with anticipation about this season, but we're at the end of training camp. You've got the 53, which will shuffle up and down and swap in and out, but for the most part we've got the guys that are going to go to war with, minus a couple of guys that are one of the reasons I'm neurotic right now. But I want to go through the press conferences from yesterday, and really just, I want to hear a little bit from British Brooks, because I'm very excited about him, a little bit from D'Amico, and a little bit from Caserio, and then kind of discuss, all right, where we actually are with some of the sore spots on the roster right now, some of the reasons for concern. I mean, there's some things, I was just writing down my lists of optimism and pessimism, and I almost forget to write quarterbacks and wide receivers. It's been such a topic all off season long, and I've done so many videos about CJ Stroud. I've talked about him so much on the radio. I've read so many articles about him that I almost look at it as a football commandment that, yeah, I'm optimistic about CJ Stroud. I don't know if optimism is the right word. Elated. It's like finding out that that one of your children found their dream spouse, and you're just so happy for them. I'm happy for the Texans and CJ Stroud. So British Brooks is going to be a big one. But as far as my overall, again, don't worry about me being neurotic. I just went ahead today. I went to BetUS, and I found the Texans over the Colts. They're just a -1. I put 20 down responsibly because I have fun with my gambling. I placed my bet, and boom. Of course I confirmed it, because I feel very good about the Texans versus the Colts. BetUS is going to give you a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. They have very fast payouts. I won the over on the Denver game the other day, and it was right there. It was where they're much faster than I am at checking my own affairs, so it was there when I checked it. But as far as British Brooks, oh, and you can use my link below to get those bonuses. British Brooks, I like many of the other players that ultimately made the team, including Cam Akers. I wasn't skeptical of British Brooks, but okay, we'll see. Undrafted rookie free agent, banged up in college, not a super productive senior season. And he came in and he was much more than what I had anticipated, especially in that final preseason game. We had seen the runs and the catching ability and everything. But that final preseason game, they used him as a fullback. They used him as a tight end, H-back, and he did really well. He was the best fullback on the field this preseason, I think. There was a certain violence to his game that the Texans just really haven't seen out of even their somewhat solid fullbacks of the past. So remember Prosher? Remember the way Prosher looked? And I like Prosher, but Brooks plays the way and hits the way that Prosher's biceps and bicep tattoos would suggest. Here's D'Amico basically shooting down my notion that British Brooks made the team in that final preseason game.
It's a thorough evaluation. I know to everyone else it seems like, oh, he just made the team, but we've been evaluating our guys since rookie minicamp, since he first came in, and British has done a great job since he hit the grass. He's been on it. He's been detailed in his approach, and he's been locked in. So that's a culmination. It's not just, British making a block versus the Rams and he makes the team. That's not the case. It's what he's done over his entire time of being here, how he studies, how he prepares, his toughness, his dedication to the work. That's why he deserved to make the team.
I'm down for whatever they need me at, to be honest. I mean, I don't care if I got to play center or...
I took the wrong video out, obviously. I subtracted myself from the equation, because I see some of you are already calling me out for my Dameon Pierce takes. We'll get to that, because the running back is not a point of pessimism for me right now. but I still think it is a work in progress. As far as British Brooks himself, you're going to love this kid. Remember, he walked on at UNC. UNC, not a super easy school to get into, even as an in-state resident. So this is a kid that didn't get the benefit like some of us have, who went to schools that are hard to get into. But if you're a really good football player, they sometimes, they slide a Seth Payne under the door. I don't think he got that benefit, and you can tell when he talks, he's a bright kid. But this is British Brooks just talking about whether he's excited about or looking forward to the opportunity to play not just running back but perhaps fullback, tight end.
I'm down for whatever they need me at, to be honest. I mean, I don't care if I got to play center or line, whatever they need me at, they won't hear a no from me.
Yeah, they won't hear a no from him. And I think that's the way he played in that final game, was when he was celebrating, looking towards the sideline after a couple of his blocks. He looked like a guy who had gotten a pep talk from a coach that told him, hey, look, man, you want to make this team, you prove that you can do what other guys can't do. And if you look at the rookies that made the team or are on the practice squad, Jawar Jordan and J.J. Taylor, I wouldn't have been surprised if those guys had made the team, but it makes sense that they're on practice squad. I think British Brooks, I wouldn't have been surprised if he was on practice squad right now, except he can do something that those guys who are both like 185 pounds or so, that they simply can't do. So I think the one thing that I would hope with British Brooks is that in this ongoing, I'm going to call it an experiment with Cam Akers and Dameon Pierce, because the way that Caserio and others have talked about it, it feels like there's still going to be evaluation going on with those guys. That you got an number one guy in Joe Mixon that you feel really good about, and then after that with Dameon, what I'm hoping is that I think Dameon does best with a lead blocker. I don't think he's had a lead blocker quite like British Brooks is capable of being. And they've seen good things out of Dameon in practice, and I think they're willing to see, okay, does it click for him? And especially, look, if we line up and teams know that Dameon's not a great outside zone runner, does it make us predictable? Maybe. But the teams that run power and lead and duo and all that stuff and do it well, they sometimes have the mindset of, okay, great, you know what's coming. Screw you. We're gonna run it down your throat. And I think they want to see if they can get with that with Dameon. We'll finish up with a couple from British Brooks, or just one. This was, he had an ACL his junior year. His senior year, he had to really fight to get back. And from the way he talked in his press conference, it sounded like he got down in the dumps about it sometimes, but he had some good people around him that helped him get his head back together. So he talked about the people that helped him, and one very interesting mammal.
In college, going through that injury, a lot of it was with my strength conditioning coach, who was actually my cousin, AJ Blue. Like, he was there for me, checking in on me. It was always me and him. I also got a dog. She was there, 24/7, pulling me around. I feel like, I tell reporters this all the time, like, I feel like my dog really helped me get back quicker, because she's like 130 pounds and we live on the 3rd floor, so I got to drag her up and down the stairs 3 times a day. So, like, I had a lot of good people in my circle, around them times that, I could lean on, and they were there for me.
Man, look, I know if you have children, it's annoying when people talk about their dogs as being like, oh, well, like it's like I'm raising a child. There is some truth to that. A cat, you can kind of leave to its own devices. Just be sure you clean up its poop, etc. A dog on the 3rd floor in the South, that's a commitment. You got to take that thing out. You're in an apartment complex, so you can't just let it poop everywhere you go. And when you're maybe feeling sorry for yourself, a dog, just like a child, reminds you that, oh yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how I feel. I got to take care of this thing. And he said that it was, I think he said XL bully, which I'm guessing is like a large bulldog. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I thought he said XL bully, so a really big bulldog. Which bulldog? I mean, it can go a variety of routes with bulldogs. As far as the running back situation right now, this is Nick Caserio when asked about Dameon making the team, despite not necessarily having he flat out didn't have great production in the preseason games.
Yeah, we'll look at everything. I mean, it's practice, it's games. I mean, some guys get more opportunities in games than others. Some guys get, opportunities in practice. I would say the joint practices, the teams use that sometimes as almost another, I would say, scrimmage or game, if you will. So Damian's been available. He's been out there. He's been productive with his opportunities in practice. I mean, limited opportunities in the game, but I mean, we're glad he's on the team, so we'll see what his role is moving forward. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what I think or what D'Amico thinks. It's what the player does with the opportunities, and then the players are going to determine how big of a role they do or do not have.
Yeah, so look, I think that Nick and D'Amico probably saw the same thing a lot of us saw, which was in practice, Damian did everything that you were hoping to see. He did look decisive. It looked like he was hitting the hole hard at times. He had some really nice runs in practice. As I've worn this out talking about this, I need to see Damian breaking tackles. And it's true that he didn't have great blocking in front of him in the preseason games, but then in practice, nobody's tackling you. So right now, at the beginning of the season, when there are very few injuries and there's room on the roster, you've got Christian Harris and Heinisch on that four-week IR. They're eligible, for those of you who don't know, they're eligible to come back after 4 weeks. So it's like a short-term IR. So I think they're going to give them, both these guys, Cam Akers and Dameon Pierce, the opportunity to show it in the regular season. And you've got a guy in Joe Mixon that can handle a lot of carries. So if I had to look at either of those guys right now as the only guy that was going to be getting more carries, other carries than than Joe Mixon, I might be more concerned about it, but I'm open to it right now, and I'm just like, I'm pulling for Damian. I did a poll the other day on my community posts, and the majority of you predicted that Damian would get traded. And I think second place was he's going to be a backup, and maybe third place was he was going to get cut. I think for one, I don't think Damian will get cut. I think even if they feel like after a few weeks that, okay, maybe it's not working out, that there's a lot of teams that would be interested in Dameon Pierce. So I think it would be some kind of a trade. But as one of you said, I predicted he'd be cut. That's false. That is a lie that you're lying about. But I did wonder if he'd be on the team. My big concern was going to be if they got rid of Cam Akers and kept Dameon Pierce. So right now, I feel like the odds are pretty good that one or both of those guys might work out. And again, that a lot of that's tied to the offensive line blocking better now that all five are together, and B, that I think British Brooks might be one little thing that helps spark that for Damian, to where he starts seeing everything a little bit faster and hitting the hole a little bit harder. So we'll see. As far as my one legitimate reason to panic right now, well, here's Caserio on Cam Akers, because I think he kind of had the same tone with Cam Akers that he did with Dameon Pierce.
Yeah, it says a lot about Cam. I mean, the player we brought in, I don't know, it was right before training camp or during training camp, and he went out there and kind of took advantage of his opportunities. So obviously it says that he's put in a lot of work to get to this point. I'd say it just gives you like an appreciation, I'd say, for the level of like athlete that you're dealing with. I mean, a normal human being, I mean, to come back from something like that, I mean, that list is pretty short. So say Cam's done a good job. He's been out there. He's been available. He's took advantage of his opportunities. We'll see what that looks like here moving forward.
Yeah, and I think without predicting what happens to either of those guys, I think the way that Caserio is framing it, it feels very much like a competition, doesn't it? It sounds like, we'll see what Damian does. We'll see what Cam does. And I think that they're still in prove-it mode. As one of you had pointed out, and this is the trouble with pronouns sometimes, he has been healthy thus far. I think you're talking about Cam. And he's torn 2 Achilles tendons. Yeah, he's been healthy, but he's got 2 Achilles tendons under his belt. So it's a matter of, all right, let's see how it all works out. And relatively limited usage too. I'm really excited about the way he looks right now, and I'm cautiously optimistic that just as it took Mechie a little while for things to really click, that there is that in Damian, and if it doesn't work out, then they'll be able to find a trade partner somewhere else where another team feels perhaps. You got to remember, dealing with football coaches and football personnel people, they all believe that they're better than anybody else in the league at actually truly getting the real player out of this guy. Even if it comes to quarterbacks that used to play for Kyle Shanahan. If you think you're going to get more out of a quarterback than Kyle Shanahan did, I want to punch you in the head. I just you sicken me. You sicken me with your ego and your prideful ways. You're going to get more out of a quarterback than Kyle Shanahan got out of a quarterback. You think that Kyle Shanahan couldn't fix this guy, but you're going to do it? Oh, the nerve, the temerity, I would say. One more from D'Amico as we get into the things that genuinely cause me concern right this moment. This is D'Amico on the linebacker room.
Oh, yeah, feel good about the linebacker room. Feel good. It's not about, for me, it's never about one position. It's about our defense, collectively, like how do 11 guys fit together. And that's what it's all about. I feel really good about our defense and where we are, pulling for Christian to get back in due time.
Yeah, in due time. It's 5 weeks on the calendar, 4 weeks of the regular season, 5 weeks on the calendar. I sure hope so. We're in Kyle Tucker zone now with Christian Harris. It's anybody's guess exactly how long it's going to take or what it is and just how he's going to respond to it. We'll get more actual details as we come up on the regular season. I would have said, well, I guess they don't have to put on an injury report form or anything, but we'll see. I just hope, man, these Kyle Tucker video updates of him running have been so depressing. Because you see the caption or you see the tweet, you're like, oh, Kyle Tucker running, and you're out there, and it's like an 80-year-old guy trying to cross the crosswalk quickly. I don't like it, Mark. I don't know exactly. This is a good point, and I don't know if this is the point you're making, but this is how I'll interpret it. Screenshot the first 53 this year to compare to the end of the season 53, either at the end of this year or the end of next year. Yeah, it's going to swap out and change a lot, but the way I took that, because we're talking about Christian Harris, if you look at last year, all right, they beat the Colts. The linebackers were a little bit of an issue in that game. But if you look at the entirety of the second half of last season, it was Christian Harris who was playing some really, really good football. He had twice the production in his second half of the season than he did in the first half of the season. But it was Hansen, it was Toa Toa, and I think Toa Toa is much better right now. It was Perryman's gone, but there was no Elshire. And that's the thing that's keeping me calm right now about the linebackers is that, yes, I think that Christian Harris is essential if they want to be a genuinely elite defense. I think to play at their peaks in this defense especially, Christian Harris is a big vital cog to that. But Elshire is there now, and Elshire is better right now than any linebacker, including Christian Harris, that they had last year in terms of being nails with his assignments, diagnosing pre-snap, getting everybody lined up. That's a big bonus over what they had last year at the position. And then you add what I think Kamari Lassiter is going to do. You add Daniil Hunter. 6 weeks from now, you add Danico Autry. And then Will Anderson again. That's another minor cause for concern right now, is just that he's got these lingering ankle issues going on 2 seasons. But I feel pretty good about him for the sum of the season. So that I'm not panicking. I know as much as some of you are. I think that about the linebacker position, unless Christian Harris ends up being some kind of a disaster. The other concerns when it comes to the run game in general, without talking about the running backs at all, the concerns are that the run game and how it's tied to the offensive line. You've got a center who's basically a rookie because he hasn't played center. He's played guard. But you've got a young center. You've got a young Kenyon Green. I think Kenyon Green is vastly improved over what he was. Oh, my gosh. I went back and I watched this reel on YouTube of every single Dameon Pierce touch from his rookie year because I wanted to remind myself of the upside there. But it's a different human being. I saw Kenyon Green in one of those games, and it just, I would never guess it's the same guy. He had kind of like big saddlebags. He was kind of just doughy shaped, and Kenyon Green doesn't look like that anymore. And when he gets out on the second level, he doesn't move the way he was moving in that game, those games that I was watching. So that part was really encouraging, that to just really see the stark visual of the before and after of Kenyon Green. He could move a lot of nutritional supplements if he chose to start some kind of weight loss product or something. for them, if they didn't have 3 veteran offensive linemen there with them, I'd be more concerned about it. I'm really more concerned right now about like if there were an injury week 1, if for some reason Laramie Tunsil wasn't ready, or if Titus Howard got injured, I'd be nervous about Blake Fisher being out there right now as one of my offensive tackles. And I think Slowick could do a great job of scheming it up for him. But I think he still needs time to really grow and mature as an offensive lineman. The one thing about that, if I'm combating my own skepticism of that, is that it is like he's had very few reps. Well, really, he's never had reps with all the starters, because for one, that would include Laramie Tunsil. But you don't get that many reps in the preseason games. The most improvement you make, in my opinion, as a player in the NFL is your first few regular season games. If you're somebody that can be a good player and you're not all banged up like Kenyon Green was his rookie year, you learn a lot in those first couple games, because everything speeds up. The physicality, the violence, all that stuff, it takes a little while to adapt to that. And a lot of guys, you see a big leap just over those first few games. And I think he's made progress from day 1 of camp until now. So it's not like I'm overly distraught or anything. I'm very optimistic about Blake Fisher. I think he can be a really good offensive tackle in the NFL. It's just a matter of what the timeline is. So if it had to be week 1, I'd be kind of fretful. Remember, we've had some experiments with rookies starting the first game of the season, or at least young players. Kendall Lamb, remember that? Remember when Deshaun got sacked like 19 times in the first? It felt like 19 times in the first half of. Oh no! It was Savage getting sacked, and then Deshaun came in. Making Deshaun wait lasted all of what, half a quarter. So I'm depth, and then when we get beyond that, it's really all about depth. I'm good with Fatukasi. I'm good with Mario Edwards. They're not likely going to be all pro this year or anything, but go over every Super Bowl winning roster from the last 20 years and find me the team that looks like the NFL equivalent of the 2001 Miami Hurricanes. Like, it's just not. You don't have a team that's loaded with studs at every single position. You got a lot of blue-collar dudes in there at times. And right now you got a defensive line that's got just a really deep, like a viciously deep group of defensive ends. And defensive tackle, I think you've got guys who are serviceable pros, and some of them, just like Sheldon Rankins did and Malik Collins did, might thrive in this system and end up being, either more highly paid with the Texans next year, or just elsewhere, because it's the system and the guys around him more so than them. So I'm not panicking about them at all. Do I have? If you're on OBS, click on audio input and click the down arrow. Are any of you others having audio issues right now? I'm only seeing one. Sometimes if it's only you, it might be on your end. All right. Have they said what the Harris injury is, or ETA on return? I know what it is, and I'm blanking on it right now. The ETA is he'll be better in due time. That's the level of optimism that we've got. As far as like as Christopher points out, it's a 4-week IR that they have now. 2 guys can be on a beginning of the season IR, at which you're eligible to return after 4 weeks. Kurt Heinisch and Christian Harris are those 2 guys right now. And I think that's where some of the roster, when I start to think about, okay, what are they doing? And they've got a lot of running backs right now on the team. They've got 5 running backs. One of those is because of Gumbawale as a special teams player, but they've also got 7 wide receivers. There are only 5 teams in the NFL right now that have 7 wide receivers. And part of that is because Steven Sims is a good special teams player, but you got 2 positions on offense where you're kind of bloated, and you got 2 guys on IR on defense. I wonder if some decisions might be made, or they're going to wait and see how the injuries play out between now and then, see how British Brooks really comes along as a lead blocker. And there's room for there's flexibility there. All right, let me see. I might have it sounds like a webcam cam. Thank you for letting me know about the audio issues. I probably am on my computer audio like a freaking fool. Yep. Horrible experience for you guys. I apologize. That should be better. Was it like that the whole time? Ugh, disgusting. And I've got no soft surfaces in this room. You're going to do a breakdown of the guys who might be filling in Harris's role while he's out. It's a good idea. I don't know. Okay, yes. I think that for one, it's going to be by committee. I think there's times where, like when they're in nickel, I think there's going to be times where it's Hansen. I think there might be times when it's Toa. I think when they're in 4-3 base, which they're in much less often these days, there's going to be times when Toa is the Sam. There's going to be times when Neville Hewitt's the Sam and Toa is the Will. So it's going to be by committee the same way it was last year. The big thing to keep in mind is that in a lot of ways, Petrie is a linebacker. You know, they've got Petrie to be your linebacker / safety when you're in nickel. And then when they need a genuine slot corner, I think they've got guys like Miles Bryant and some of the other depth at safety and cornerback. The guys that are better in pure man coverage or better as pure cover guys, the guys that are actually cornerbacks that are probably going to fill that role. So Petrie's going to be genuinely a jack of all trades. There's sometimes where he's going to be slot corner. There's sometimes where he's going to be the nickel linebacker. There's other times where he's going to be playing safety. But that's a little bit of how you can mix and match with these guys right now until Christian Harris gets back. Yeah. Let's see. And as far as the Dameon Pierce stuff goes, as I said before, I will be 100% happy to be completely wrong in my concern over Dameon Pierce. But I think it's justified. I don't think like I'm being irrational or just trying to fan the flames of drama or anything like this. As far as there's the comment, I thought he was going to get traded. I think I've been pretty consistent with that I thought he was going to get traded because I know for a fact there are other teams out there that are very intrigued by Dameon Pierce. So I don't think I ever thought he was going to get cut. So I'll thank you, SOF Jules, to not lie on me, bro. The British are coming. Let's see. Jalen can do just about anything. That's what I said. His position on the depth chart. I was looking at how he's been used in the preseason, and one of the things, I don't like Pro Football Focus grades, but I do like a lot of their stats, and especially they give you detailed breakdowns of every position. At one point, they did classify him as a defensive end on one single play, which is under, depending on which blitz it was or whatever. But it was, so he was classified as a defensive end, which he wasn't, but defensive end, linebacker, safety, and I think they had him as and they had him as corner a few times as the slot corner. So he's basically everything except a defensive tackle. That's his position, everything except defensive tackle. I legit hope Anthony Richardson figures this out and becomes a QB just for the game quality aspect. It's going to take longer than 1 week for that to happen. My one thing about Anthony Richardson, but I'm trying to look at this analytically and not just be a hater on this. And man, football's changed a lot, and there's lots of guys that get away with janky mechanics and everything. But you watch him play, and almost every throw is a sidearm. And for him, throwing at an odd angle is when he has to throw over the top. So there was a play in the preseason where there was a little bit of clutter at his feet, and immediately, with two open guys in front of him, one that might have been kind of a tough throw, but one that was the check down. The check down is wide open in front of him on 1st and 10, and it's the running back. He's sitting 3 or 4 yards past the line of scrimmage. So it's an easy 3-yard gain at least on 1st and 10, but probably like a 5-yard gain and maybe more. He would have to beat one defensive back who was in coverage on somebody else, or a linebacker who was in coverage on somebody else. And he just bailed and ran, and that was when he got strip sacked. And I'm watching it, I'm like, why did he do that? And the only thing I can think is because there were offensive and defensive linemen in front of him, and for him he'd have to throw over the top to get to it. So I don't know how you work with that and also have him develop as a pocket passer. I mean, any kind of comparison to Lamar Jackson at this point would be such an egregious insult to Lamar Jackson and his ability as a passer that I don't even feel comfortable talking about it. I don't even like having an academic discussion about how somebody might compare him to a future Lamar Jackson. Yes, he can run like crazy and it's scary as hell. And we saw that with the Texans, but he's got some work to do. And then his footwork, you figure you can clean up, but man, the mechanics, and supposedly he was working on his mechanics all offseason. I can't think of a guy that was and it's not even a 3/4 slot. He's whipping it sidearm. He's like Phil Neshek. Is there anybody you guys can think of who is, like Stafford maybe? Because Stafford can throw from all different arm angles and he throws sidearm when the situation demands it. I just don't know, man. I don't know. Yeah, it's an insult for any passing quarterback to be compared to Anthony Richardson. But he does make he is capable of making some beautiful throws, and then people post them on social media, and they'll say, "Oh, I thought he wasn't accurate," which it's like watching a Martin Maldonado home run and saying, "Thought you said Martin Maldonado is a bad hitter. It doesn't look like it here. Look at that home run." Yeah, it happens. Yeah, Phillip Rivers. And Phillip Rivers, though, is also Phillips is it's a janky delivery. It's kind of like he pushes it almost, but it's not sidearm, right? But there's plenty of guys with weird mechanics. So that Phillip Rivers is the guy that I try to remind myself of. Like, okay, having weird mechanics isn't it doesn't end your chances as an NFL quarterback. But Phillip Rivers also always had really good arm talent, which so does Richardson. It's just so weird. It's really, really weird. But I've been proven wrong so many times before on, when you start to do the old man thing of nobody from a spread system will ever work. Drew Brees. So the kids, that's what they were saying 20 years ago. Well, take his kid from a spread system. That doesn't translate to the NFL. See, yeah, Rivers' shot puts the ball. It's funky to watch until you get used to it, and then you watch him play as a quarterback and everything. So that would be the thing with Richardson. He might be one of those guys that just gets away with it. It's different. It's different. It's an outlier. So I'm gonna cap this at a half hour today. And thank you, everybody. Please like, subscribe. Thank you to BetUS for sponsoring the video. You can click on the link below to get that 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. And everybody have an awesome day. Oh, check out my video I just did on CJ Stroud yesterday. If you haven't watched it already, it's just a little 4-minute video, little thing that CJ's doing and working and focusing on in training camp this year that you've seen the results from already in some of the preseason games. And I think it's just one more step in CJ becoming what he's probably going to become in the end. It's really it's fun to watch this.